Usually ICOs, shitcoins in general, they use the blockchain hype to scam private investors, retail investors.
Yes.
So buy our token because of blockchain.
Yes.
That's a scam, and it's a scam to investors. Digitalization is helping the centralization of fiat to print more, to distort more, and to censor more. The problem is that people are just so in love with the brand of the dollars that they not Bitcoiners, but people in Turkey that are suffering, people in Venezuela, they see the dollar, and that's stability for them. It's even if it has lost 97% of the purchasing power just in the last century, even if most of the supply has been printed in the last few years, even if it's super easy to censor, to manipulate.
Mr. Giacomo Zucco.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking the time at last. We were talking for like a few months to make this happen, but things happen in the right time, right?
Yeah. Lugano Forum for me is a little bit hectic.
Yes.
Lugano, San Salvador Forum is a little bit more relaxed.
Good. So I'm glad I caught you. So welcome to another episode of You're the Voice. I have the pleasure of sitting here with Giacomo Zucco, and he's a director of Plan B Network, which, if you haven't seen my previous episode with Mir, who is Giacomo's wife, I wrote myself, your better half.
Yeah, definitely better.
She's your better half, right?
Definitely better. Probably more than half. Is my better 90%.
And people will be the judge whether her interview or your interview was better, but she raised up the bar. That's right. So go watch the episode with Mir. It was wonderful. But we're going to talk about some of the things related to Plan B Network today, but also on other things. Giacomo is also a Bitcoin maxi, and I started, I think, following you in the last 1.5 years, because I'm relatively new in this space, about 3 years. And the moment I discovered you, I'm like, thank God for people like that in Bitcoin. We need that truth tellers, the people that have no fear to speak out and really are exposing bullshit in a very graceful way, very funny way. So
graceful is not a typical adjective I get, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's graceful. I find it very funny. So can you tell us a bit about your background, where you came from, how you started, and what got you to what you do today?
So I always changed my interests a lot. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a singer, then I wanted to be an inventor, then I wanted to be an archaeologist. By the time I started to do like ancient literature to do archaeology, so classical studies in Italy, humanities, then I was so bored by humanities that I switched, and university I did physics, and I basically had my dissertation in theoretical physics, Hamilton's quaternions. But by the time I was so bored about physics that I started to get interested in economics, and I got my first job as
without doing a degree in it.
Just
studying
personal
yourself.
study.
Yeah.
I think luckily, but otherwise I would be probably I would not get Bitcoin. But it's better to have zero education than a negative education, I guess. I started from an advantage point. Then I was hired by Accenture to do system design in payments, and so I was exposed to the infrastructure of traditional fiat payments, and I was active politically. I started an advocacy group against taxes, the Italian Tea Party. So I was going in television to advocate against taxes and governments, like libertarian-leaning stuff. And in that period, I was active in two very different cultural groups. One was my friends translating the Mises.org articles in Italian.
Right.
So that was Austrian economy, kind of conservative-leaning environment, mostly focused on economics, monetary economics especially. And then I was inside a few groups that were more like left libertarian, some groups coming from the Pirate Party, Occupy Wall Street, the people meeting under Assange embassy, the embassy where Assange was prisoner in London, people interested in WikiLeaks. And this was a completely different kind of social framework.
Right.
These people knew nothing about economics at all, monetary, economic, let that alone. And they were mostly like social progressives, totally different people. And in December 2012, I was part of the review of the translation of a Mises article about Bitcoin from the point of view of digital gold, what will have been eventually become famous as the Seyfedian territory. So Austrian economics, digital gold, store of value, this kind of narrative. And in the same week, people from the other context started to discuss Bitcoin because of WikiLeaks adoption of Bitcoin and the interaction with the Silk Road case.
Yep.
And so something completely different from the first narrative. I was interested in both, but I felt myself as the only, as an only overlap. I mean, like nobody else was in both groups. Usually they were incompatible in many other ways, but I
Yeah.
was in both. And then in the January of 2013, I started to see a discussion between German colleagues in Accenture about Bitcoin as a technological improvement with no political overtone. It was mostly about the technology. And back then there was not yet the blockchain hype. It was like Bitcoin is interesting because it's like a use of cryptography. So 3 parts of my life suddenly felt connected. 3 very disconnected parts of my life suddenly felt connected. So a few months later, I was talking about Bitcoin, studying Bitcoin, thinking about Bitcoin all the time. So my beautiful wife, your previous guest, she told me, I mean, you should quit and just do Bitcoin because your political activism is pointless. You don't, you just waste money and time. Yeah, it was. It was a feel-good hobby
I
with
know.
without any kind of impact on the world. And my career was boring, very boring, like 9 to 5 or 9 to 11 consultancy
Yes,
job in
Accenture,
Accenture.
of course.
I mean, very stressful, no satisfaction. Yeah, it was about technology, but I started off that job as as a generalist, and they wanted to specialize me in very particular, I don't know, software for payroll in SAP, something I didn't want to do.
Yes.
And so you're frustrated at your work. You don't make a lot of money.
Well, even if you do, you're sharing it with the state then.
Yeah, sharing with the state a
Taxes.
lot, trying to minimize that, but not that much. And your political activism is void, is just a vanity activity. While you were interested in Bitcoin, Bitcoin could be a job, Bitcoin could be money, Bitcoin could be politics in both direction. Bitcoin could be technology where you are have the skill to understand and explain. So maybe just do Bitcoin. And I said yes. And then next day I told my boss, yeah, I'm quitting. And so I quit Accenture. And then the idea was to create Bitcoin startups. I created way too many of them, and a very high percentage failed immediately before starting. Back then I was a shitcoiner. So I started to think that not just Bitcoin was possible, but so at the beginning I was like, Bitcoin is not possible in the first few months. Then I accepted Bitcoin, but at that point my skepticism as being so hardly beaten by Bitcoin that I lost it completely and started to believe everything. So I went from believe nothing no corner to believe everything shit corner. And it took a few months to get back to the center, basically of actually reasonable skepticism. So a few Bitcoin startups. I participated to the creation of Green Address, which then became Blockstream Green. The wallet Blockstream Green was a startup in 2013.
Wow.
I participated to, well, a few things. Most of them bullshit, but some of them lasted in time. And then, together with Mir, we started to organize the biggest Italian Bitcoin meetup. The third iteration of the Scaling Bitcoin conference, we brought it to Milan. Then we did the meeting to create the Lightning interoperability specification, and then stuff from there exploded, and yeah.
And you never looked back.
No, not at all. Not at all. Best choice of our life.
You're the Voice is brought to you by Trezor, the original Bitcoin hardware wallet company pioneering the development of self-custody for crypto assets since 2013, empowering individuals with an open source device, enabling beginners and experts to easily and securely hold their coins. I find my Trezor super easy to use and recommend it to my friends and family. Enjoy my 5% discount on Trezor products by clicking the link in the show notes and using the code FLAT.
And Plan B Network, how did that start?
So we did something similar. During that time, me and Mir had created this stuff called BHB Network. So the idea was we had all these brilliant Bitcoin startups, but they don't make any money. We make money. I made money mostly by consulting banks and institutions, and I took all this money and I spent it to basically help my friends Bitcoiner to survive. So we decided to turn that into a business model. So we rented a place in Milan. We invited for free all the best Bitcoiners from all over the world, free travel, accommodation, food, entertainment, and desk in a calculated way, like the people working on the same protocols, on the same stuff. And the only thing that we asked them was to share, to basically share with us what they were doing, like show and tell periodically. And then we hired up to 13 people to a moment with the only mandate, help these guys, whatever they need, from software to legal to personal assistant, everything. In exchange, you gather information, package information, then we sell information. We sold it to Intesa San Paolo Bank, Azimut Group, Poste Italiane, a lot of Italian companies.
What kind of information?
Investment radars, reports on what Bitcoin is and Bitcoin isn't.
Back then, they were interested in
Well,
that
of
kind
course.
of information?
The brand we used to sell, it was Blockchain Lab. So it was, of course, we entered the hype and they were asking blockchain and we were selling Bitcoin. So we scammed them. But actually, we provided very good things. Like one of these clients, a very big Italian bank, had one of the first cold storage multi-sig implementation back in 2016, and a working Lighting prototype created by us together with the Lighting Labs guys already in 2016 as well. And they did nothing with that. It's like, at the end of the Riders of the Lost Ark, where you recover the Ark of Covenants and it just get put in a secret storage for many. It's the same thing. They put this incredible stuff very, very early on and put it in the basement for nobody to see.
Big corporations do that a lot.
Yeah.
That's why they have what's called innovation departments. That
We
come
were
up with
working
all-
for them. Yeah, we were working for the
They come up
innovation.
with all these ideas, and I think 80-90% of them are being shelved.
So that was not Plan B Network. Then we had our first daughter, our first kid, the daughter, and so we decided to quit, to close down the effort. It was called BHB Network because we had the idea to expand it, the same model in different parts of the world. We had one deal in Montreal, Canada, one in South Africa, one in Hong Kong, to open some kind of twin laboratories to do the same model all around the world. But it was ambitious, it was a good idea, but we closed it down because for personal reasons. So we focused on the daughter, and I started to do freelance. So I had a few investments in some Bitcoin companies, from Relai to Ocean. Back then it was others, but I did small investment and some consultancy, like a bank wants to ask about Bitcoin, I will go there, charge few $1,000s and then just be home with the family. So we took it slow for a while, but then about 1 year and a half ago, two companies approached me. One was Tether. Tether created this Plan B initiative in Lugano, and they wanted to expand it as an educational effort. And the other one was Fulgur. Fulgur was the other half of the investment in the Lugano Plan B hub, which is now called POW.space. So it's a co-working, Bitcoin-themed co-working in Lugano. And they knew that we did something similar with this network of ideas. So they tried to ask me to replicate the same thing.
Yep.
So the brand, I love the Plan B brand because the Plan B brand, I think, is very, the narrative that we use with Paolo Ardoino on stage, in our talk as well. If the Plan A of the mainstream goes, don't stop it. Just trust it. Just go with that. But in case it breaks, we want to be ready with the Plan B. So I think it was a very good narrative. So we are not an alternative to university. Go to university, but just in case the university system is broken, then we can probably help. And we don't want to just compete with the mainstream existent. We want to create an alternative with different logics. So Tether and Fulgur provide me with an offer of a budget in order to do education on one side, Bitcoin education, but in the future also other kinds of Plan B education, from energy to communication. So Plan B for money and Plan B for other things. And on the other side, this idea of interconnected co-working, co-living, incubator, accelerator kind of stuff. This is not an entirely new idea. Some people may remember the Bitcoin Embassy Network. Was an idea of 2014. In Israel, in Tel Aviv, there is still the embassy.
Yeah.
Now there is that embassy is mostly independent, but back in 2013, there was the idea to connect, to connect them as an embassy network.
Okay.
So it's something similar. We are connecting the node in Lugano with one in Turin that we are building right now, with one in Tokyo that we're going to open in spring, with one in Taiwan, which is very active. We are trying to federate with people in Madeira, the already existing hotspot in Madeira. So the idea is we will build together with Fulgur and Tether some new hubs, and we also integrate existing hubs like Madeira or maybe Pleb Labs in Austin with our existing network. So the education part of the Plan B network idea. So the Plan B network is a umbrella company which can do several things. One is education with what we will start to call the Plan B Academy, which is mostly what you can find now on our website. Courses, schools. We just hosted the developer school in San Salvador. We do the business school in Lugano and many other courses. Then there will be events, which is basically our connection with the forum. In the forum, we organize the game show, the diploma, the Spanish stage. In Lugano, we organize the Italian stage. We do the parties, the Rockamotos, all this kind of stuff. So we're trying to basically integrate with the event part. And then there will be a little bit of investments because we are in touch with Fulgur for the Plan B fund. Right now, the Plan B fund already invested in Breez, was the first investment, but the idea is to provide a lot of suggestions for investment, and this should be all integrated under the Plan B network. So, what is the Plan B network? Well, it's a mess. It's a lot of things. We will try to make it work.
Okay, you touched on. Thank you, of course, but you touched on Tether's involvement in Plan B, or one of their projects is Plan B. How do you view Tether for Bitcoin, or as a driver for Bitcoin, as a sponsor of Bitcoin? I don't know how to call it, but I feel like the relationship between Tether and Bitcoin are so different than anything else.
Yeah, it's very curious.
So I'm curious about your approach on how these two entities live together.
It's very peculiar for at least two reasons. The first, that Tether is a very happy accident, and I will elaborate on that. And the second is that Tether is a very useful scam, and I will also elaborate on that. So Tether started off, so at the beginning, I was very close with Giancarlo De Vasini and other people, and they were mostly working on Bitfinex. Bitfinex was a great exchange, very useful for Bitcoin, very pro-Bitcoin. They were very helpful in the block size wars. The Bitfinex roles in the block size wars cannot be underestimated. They were the first one to adopt Lightning, so they fostered the technology adoption of Lightning. They sponsored my project RGB, that then branched off with the Taproot asset that today was announced on stage. So a lot of very good things, very good relationship with Bitfinex. Tether was supposed to just be a service, like an additional service for Bitfinex, in the sense that in order to get on Bitfinex with a lot of problems with fiat bank accounts, you separate the trading from the representation of fiat. So people will send fiat not to Bitfinex, which would be difficult to buy Bitcoin, but to Tether. Then you send the representation of the fiat via Omni protocol on Bitcoin to Bitfinex, and you trade there, and that's easy. Brilliant idea by Giancarlo, and the even more brilliant idea was
to create a bridge and to help people just bring the flow in. Yeah.
But also let other exchanges use the same. So instead of creating something proprietary for us, to help, since we use it for Bitfinex, come on, and everybody can use it. Open for everybody. That creates a situation in which many people entered, but not many people exited, which was not really expected in principle. Like, it could have been mostly symmetrical flow, but since more people are buying Bitcoin than selling Bitcoin on average, people were buying Tether to enter, but not really exit back. So basically the credit, the debt, in a sense, of Tether started to grow so much that a bank could not just keep the Tether account in cash under the basement of the bank. They had to invest in stuff, and the obvious investment will be T-bills, because they have to track the dollar price. So there are not much alternatives. What is liquid enough to keep a cash reserve of 4 billion, 40 billion? So they started to buy T-bills. I can assure you that the Tether people were not like super in love with the Federal Reserve and the American federal government debt, but there was no other option to track the dollar. And what happens is that for a pure coincidence coincided with the rise of interest rates on the treasury bonds in America. So they start to make a lot of money. And now they find themselves with a lot of money to invest in something that they care for, which was always Bitcoin and has always been Bitcoin. Paolo Arduino is a Bitcoin maximalist, and well, Giancarlo is a very pragmatic man, but Bitfinex always had a very strong Bitcoin-centered mission. So now they always sponsored Bitcoin research and education, but now they find themselves in a condition to do it even more, not under the Bitfinex umbrella anymore, but under the Tether umbrella. The second point that makes the relationship pretty weird is that, of course, I don't represent Tether legally, so everything I say may be false, and you have to ask Tether lawyers. But this is my personal opinion. I don't speak for them. Tether could run USDT, technically speaking, just like PayPal, with a central server. There is no strict reason for a blockchain. But if you do PayPal, the regulator will come to you and tell you, you cannot onboard a homeless guy from Somalia or an underage kid from Patagonia. You need KYC, AML, full rules. And Tether did something very, very smart. They said, okay, the primary market where we sell the USDT and we redeem the USDT, that's fully regulated. KYC, AML, just like any other company. We cannot do otherwise. But then, since we put it on the blockchain for technical reasons, we cannot stop a secondary market that will happen. I mean, you come to me to buy USDT, I have to fully KYC AML you. But then you
Once
send
you have it.
Yeah, you send it to a wallet, which works, but then it was Omni. Then they started to use shitcoins, but for a reason. And I will touch on that. And now you send it to a shitcoin wallet or a Bitcoin wallet, you cannot stop it. What you can do is, regulator, if you ask me, I can blacklist this series of addresses, so I will not redeem, but I cannot control, I cannot do preemptive global erga omnes control like they are required to do on fiat. So, in my opinion, the technical reason, this is a personal opinion again, technical reasons to use the blockchain are basically zero. There may be something like interoperability with the exchanges, but they could use MySQL. But there is a strong, regulatory arbitrage in which they are not forced to control a blockchain, because it's not them. It's Tron, it's Polygon, it's Ethereum. All of them are centralized, by the way. But and Tether is also centralized.
Except for the Bitcoin.
Except for which, interestingly enough, they had to stop using. Why? Because the protocol on top of Bitcoin was at this point used only.
They stopped back then.
They stopped a few years ago. Well, actually, a couple of years ago, they realized that Omni was only used by Tether. And that was a problem, because in that case, the regulator could come to them and say, stop supporting this. This is basically your infrastructure. So now you're liable, you're in control. They removed it and they kept using shitcoins. And now, finally, with Taproot Asset, which I'm proud to say is basically a fork, well, a reimplementation of the RGB idea that Bitfinex and Fulgur sponsored for many years, and I was the guy starting the research, and that line of research will finally bring USDT back on Lightning and those on Bitcoin. So we don't have the problem to indirectly legitimize shitcoin tokens. But in a way, I said all this in order to intend that Tether people will never agree with this definition, rightfully so. But I would call Tether a scam to regulators. Usually ICOs, shitcoins in general, they use the blockchain hype to scam private investors, retail investors. So buy our token because of blockchain. That's a scam, and it's a scam to investors. In the case of USDT, there is nobody that will be bamboozled by an investment, because you send me a USD, best case scenario, you get it back. But there's no investment to be made. It's just $1. If you're lucky, you get $1 back. So this kind of scam was not to attract people lured in with any prospect of getting rich. If you need to move dollars, you can use this tool. They never promoted keeping store of value on USDT. You can find a lot of public declaration by Paolo. Don't store your value in USDT. Use it to transact, which it does perfectly. And but all the shitcoins, they may use the blockchain hype to confuse the regulators, but then they also end up confusing investors as a inevitable kind of
after effect.
After effect. While with USDT, very luckily, that doesn't happen, because you cannot invest in USDT by definition. So it's part of the blockchain hype. but it's I'm happy that it exists because it's helping a lot of people to do stuff that they could not do with PayPal, especially in the secondary market, and that they could do with Bitcoin when they get it and they can start to manage the volatility. And but some people are obviously not ready. We could take so the community relationship with Tether is mixed because on one side, Tether is helping the US dollar to be adopted around the world, which of course is
It's
helping
not what
the enemy.
we want as Bitcoiners.
Yeah, but it's helping the dollar to be used in a way which is mostly permissionless, not totally permissionless, because they still have some kind of central point of attacks. So in the secondary markets, people that were completely cut out of the digital dollar are actually included
I'm
in
with you.
USDT.
The benefit is clear, yes.
Of course, it's a problem of mitigation. Whenever there is a mitigation, you may remember the Marxist argument that you should not help the poor, otherwise they will not do the revolution. So if you don't mitigate the problem will then explode and maybe bring to a better solution. So one could say, don't do this, so people will be forced out of fiat, and then they will finally accept Bitcoin. But the reality is that most of the people are still scared by Bitcoin's volatility and the brand recognition of the dollar.
I'm not saying that for Bitcoin. I'm saying that for like anti-dollar, or like I'm just doing the devil's advocate here.
No, it's a good argument.
Yeah.
But the point is that it's not pragmatic. These people,
anti-fiat US dollar growth in the world.
These people right now have a choice between normal fiat, where they are excluded, and Bitcoin, where they still don't get the volatility, they still don't get the brand recognition. And Tether is a mitigation, it's a bridge in between. And if it's made by a company which invests most of the revenues in Bitcoin research, in the Bitcoin ecosystem, as Tether is doing, without doubt, I think this I understand the discussion. I'm not saying that it's an obvious, but I fully believe in the intentions and the overall beneficial effect.
Okay, great. I heard some, since I came late to the party, I heard that, there's an issue with auditing the reserves of Tether, saying, it's buying all these treasury bills and no one ever verified that they have what they say they have.
They had a few audits. The problem is that audits are not done by top 4 companies. That is not PwC auditing. So the point there would be to enter the the elite room where you can actually right now these kind of companies are not touching something which is controversial. They still don't know what is the relationship between Tether and the US government. So they're very wary to accept. Tether proposed many times to be audited by a big company. So they have audits. You can check them online. But these audits are made by,
not
second,
top tier.
third tier, not top tier.
Okay.
But you can check the audit. Is mostly there is a lot of gold in reserves. There is some Bitcoin, of course, not too much because they have to track the dollar, not the Bitcoin. And there's mostly T-bills, which are fully verifiable. And there are some commercial paper of private company, but is still something very liquid. And there were a lot of stress tests on Tether. There was a lot of very, very fast conversion where you could see them selling under a lot of stress, selling very fast these assets, liquidating them and paying back. Again, personal opinion, not represented.
Not related to Tether.
There may be even the possibility, technically speaking, that Tether is over-collateralized because they cannot know how many tokens in the secondary market are not moving because somebody just decided to not move it or because somebody lost the keys. If they issued a USDT and somebody lost the keys, from the terms of service point of view, this collateral is now part of the company. So they may be over-collateralized compared to the circulating supplies of USDT.
Because of the means of use, because of how people use them.
Yeah. There is the argument. They can do fractional reserve. They can hide something. But the conspiracy theory is they print Tether without the collateral. They print USDT to buy Bitcoin and pump the price. I think I find this very stupid because the point is that, yes, every exchange can do it, including Bitfinex.
Right.
But if they want to do it, there are 2 ways to do it. One is create a Bitfinex account, create fake dollars within the Bitfinex account, buy Bitcoin from there. Nobody will know because it's an internal database account. Or do it with USDT, which is basically represented in public chains that anybody can verify and everybody can try to run the numbers. So it would be the most stupid way. So if they wanted to do fractional reserve, they would and should do it with Bitfinex dollar account, like Kraken could do, Coinbase could do.
It's more hidden rather than doing it out in the open through Tether.
Doing an auditable public chain is just stupid. So I think that I mean, I would rather believe Bitfinex dollar accounts are not fully collateralized over Tether is not, because Tether is super easy to double check, and there are audits. I've read some, but then I find it very boring. So I am not an authority in asset auditing because I find it boring. But nobody that I know that I've checked remain with many doubts about the fact that, of course, it's it's liquid, it's there,
Yep.
it's still a counterparty risk. The U.S. government could just decide that the T-bills owned by Tether are now not ready anymore,
Yep.
and then the collateral evaporates. So that's something that Tether people know and say. So
And ready for it sounds like.
and ready for to
I mean,
some
mentally,
extent.
it sounds
Mentally
like,
and even financially, they may have some
Okay.
plan B. So, of course, the main point is do not hold USDT. It's a transactional stuff. If you want to store value, Bitcoin. If you want to transact and your counterparty is not ready for Bitcoin pricing, Bitcoin volatility, Bitcoin brand recognition, you have this dollar option. Tether is also pushing for Tether Gold, XAUt. Tether Gold is actually fully collateralized, reviewable at any time, pegged the dollar. So they issue, they issue
I didn't know that.
XAUt, and they buy gold, which is in
physical
a
gold.
physical gold that you can even visit if you have enough of them,
Yep.
in a Swiss vault under a mountain, which is beautiful to see. And it's and actually Tether is pushing XAUt, but for some reason the brand of it would be way safer because
Right.
there is a clear way for the
You
U.S.
don't rely
government
on the government.
Yeah,
T-bills.
exactly.
Gold, yeah.
There's no way for the U.S. government to make that gold disappear unless they invade Switzerland, which everything can happen, but it's like
Probability
a
is
little
pretty
bit
low.
remote. So they are pushing for XAUt. I think it's a very good product. The problem is that people are just so in love with the brand of the dollars that not Bitcoiners, but people in Turkey that are suffering, people in Venezuela. They see the dollar, and that's stability for them. It's even if it has lost 97% of the purchasing power just in the last century or something. Even if most of the supply has been printed in the last few years, even if it's super easy to censor, to manipulate, they are in love with the dollar.
Yeah.
So Tether would love to push gold more. I know that for a fact, speaking with the leaders, but the market is so much in love with the dollars. But now Tether is not just USDT. Tether branched off and used all this money coming from the T-bill interest to buy like All Punch and sponsor like Rumble and Synonym. So they are basically diversifying. There is a Tether Power, which is doing central mining and power plants all around the world. There is Tether Data with All Punch and the Northern Stream for the AI GPU training, and there is they're doing Tether Evo with biotech. They have the BlackRock Neuralink technology.
Seriously?
They are competing with Elon Musk Neuralink.
Oh my God.
They acquired a competitor to that with the same mindset that all this technology is good if you do that local and sovereign. So the take on that is
I'm a big anti to those technologies.
Yeah, but you should discuss. I mean, if you grab Paolo, you should discuss about that because his theory is instead of refusing this technology, we should build an alternative where this technology is not centralized. Is not so. The difference is Neuralink. You basically connect with the central server of Elon Musk, and you just hope that everything goes fine, like driving a Tesla. Like what they're trying to do with this BlackRock alternative is not BlackRock the fund. It's just a coincident name. You try to do something local with no cloud access, which cannot be connected from the outside, which is only local, or the same with so-called AI. The idea is that instead of just chatting with ChatGPT and leaving Sam Altman all your data, you train stuff locally, we keeping the data locally. So the full mission is, if you read the business plan of this stuff, the full mission is be a plan B to these technologies. Instead of the centralized version, which is controlled, instead of just saying we don't use it, we create an alternative which is as much as possible local and sovereign.
I understand the approach, and I will definitely look into it. And if I manage to talk to Paolo, I will. What I'm against is the underlying ethos of it, of being like having the need to actually track our brain function. I think that we are getting closer and closer to the transhumanistic agenda, where we are becoming intertwined with robots and with the singularity approach. And I think that that is a very dangerous slippery slope that we shouldn't be taking. So it's more in the ideological part that I am against this, not the implementation, whether it's central or decentralized.
Well, I think that the ideological point
I
would
will
be
look into
you will.
it more.
I'll let this to a conversation between you and Paolo, but I think that you will agree on the fundamental ideological position, but you will disagree on the strategy. He thinks you cannot just hide from this. You cannot really stop it. So the only thing that you can do is to create an alternative to fight it. So he would say, if robots will try to control us, the only way to fight robots would be to have our own sovereign chips. So he doesn't think it's possible to stop transhumanism. So he wants to make transhumanism
So that's
decentralized.
where I disagree. But
Sure.
I get it. People told me that I won't be able to resist mRNA. So far, I'm doing pretty well. So
I
we'll see.
know.
And it's just
I take
me.
another
I
side.
think humanity has to also be very vigilant about how much do we accept technology in our lives. And here I am sitting with you in a technological conference. It's not like I'm against technology. I've been 25 years.
Bitcoin is
in tech.
technology.
Exactly. I've been 25 years in tech. I love technology. But
translating our debate.
But where is the border? But where is the line that I draw between
for your physical body, for example?
Physical body to the IoT or the.
Not sure it's a very resistant border, but agree to disagree. For Bitcoin, one of the options could have been, when you see central banking and fiat, one of the options would be, and some libertarians took that option. No, technology is corrupting money, it's true, like digital censorship, surveillance, printing money out of a database. Let's remain with gold.
Analog,
and that's
completely
analog.
Yeah.
So let's remain with gold. That's a consistent position.
I understand the
but
approach.
It's a losing one.
I agree.
And Bitcoin is...
On that I agree. On the monetary side, I agree.
He's extending, Paulo is extending.
Health and body is a little bit different than money, but...
I know.
It's a completely interesting...
But now you get the idea. They are trying to extend the Bitcoin approach into these other fields that right now are dominated by big tech kind of control situation. Could be a losing bet.
Definitely very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you... in my keynote just today, I spoke about the new monetary order that is shaping up in the world, that is consistent of many different types of instruments. Because we are still in the stage of shaping it up, then you're seeing the eruption of all these different types of instruments, like the tokenization, like the stablecoins, obviously have to be very regulated, like the ETFs, like the CBDCs, retail, wholesale. There are all these different types of experiments with digital money for the traditional finance when they're trying to now bridge over to the digital sphere with finance, which haven't happened in many, many years. I mean, we know it's digital today, but not in the way that they want it to be and not in the way that that they want to take it. Plus, you and I were also on a panel a couple of months ago. We talked about CBDCs, right? So my question is, how do you envision this new monetary order that is shaping up? Do you feel like, because I have, and since we did the panel, I think and just monitoring what's happening, I think my opinion is changing the wholesale CBDC. Yes, they will probably try to implement the interoperability between countries and central banks with some kind of a digital platform, this unified ledger that they're trying to reinvent the wheel of what Bitcoin already has, while at the same time you're seeing countries or nation states becoming more and more friendly towards Bitcoin, as long as it's identified, permissioned, KYC, AML, and also regulated stablecoins, whether it's by the nation states or the corporations and the commercial banks. You want to issue your own token. You want to have something that is under regulation, and we see in so many countries laws and regulations that are now coming into play to allow stablecoins to exist in a very controlled way. So how do you see this shaping up? I feel like we're in, let's say if this is a 10-year process or a 15-year process, I feel like we're in the first 2-3 years now. So we're probably going to see a lot of changes still, but I know you're a visionary and you always think about these things.
Yeah, I think it's a very complex kind of situation because there are different tendencies that are orthogonal to each other. They interact in non-trivial ways. For example, one point is free banking.
Yes.
Before, so fiat was a process of centralization.
Yes.
Before any commercial bank could issue their notes and then they redeem the notes with some collateral. And in the US at the beginning of the 20th century, any bank could just issue a note and redeem it. Then some of those banks had some kind of bank run, and so that was used as an excuse to centralize everything in state banks. And then the federal bank said, wait a minute, you cannot do that, states banks. Let's just do the federal bank, and the states bank cannot do anything anymore. So it's a centralization of monopoly on a banknotes issuing function. So there was a centralization. Then there was an international centralization. Bretton Woods. So guys, we are only the Fed will keep the collateral. Everybody else will just keep dollars. So credit from the Feds, and then we will do the exchange centrally. So there was a centralization movement. In a way, what's happening right now with technology is that decentralized entities are getting more powerful because with digital technology they can track more, they can censor more, they can print more. Like if you what I always say is that printing money is with paper is already cheap and doable, but at least you take some time. When you watch the Casa del Papel, these guys at least have to stay 3 days in the bank in order to print.
Yes,
if you do that with
right.
digital, they enter, they do click and they exit because it's already done.
The big red button.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. You don't even need paper. So digitalization is helping the centralization of fiat to print more, to distort more, and to censor more.
Yep.
But at the same time, it may help. It's not really happening so much, but it may help a little bit re-decentralizing, not at the individual level, but at least at the corporation commercial bank level. If commercial banks can take something out of the central bank, it could also be seen as a partial return to free banking. But I think that this is a delusional path, because even if it's happening to some degree, it's very easy for the government to stop that and to re-decentralize everything. In a way, Tether itself is free banking, is a company issuing dollar credits, bypassing the central banking entirely. And to some inferior degree, USDC is the same.
Yep.
But of course, USDC is fully controlled by the US government, and Tether will not be able to always operate the secondary market outside of the US government. Eventually, it will end, and they know it, and they are preparing the contingency plans. So I see that as a potential, let me put it this way, if there was no Bitcoin, my hope would be e-gold kind of entities, commercial banks trying to rebuild the free banking system against the government with some kind of legal arbitrage, trying to stay in the mud of ambiguity, legal ambiguity, different jurisdiction competing. If there was no Bitcoin, that would be my best hope, my best wish for having more freedom and stability in the payment and banking and financial sector. Since we have Bitcoin, I'm glad to, I'm not disturbed by the fact that this is delusional, because I think that this will fail and Bitcoin will go on. And in the meantime, this debate about CBDC can just take some focus out of Bitcoin. So the regulator will be busy trying to create the perfect CBDC, and they will be busy trying to prevent private companies from doing the same. And in this, the meme.
The front runner advantage.
Yeah, the meme. The two girls are fighting, and then the guy with the bong is watching. So the guy with the bong is Bitcoin, and then you have private companies and commercial banks fighting governments to do the CBDCs. I mean, let them fight.
Yeah. Okay, good. Bitcoiners won't comply in 2013 was your title of yesterday's keynote, and then versus 2024, where it's fuck government. That was the title. And then we said 2013 it was fuck government, WikiLeaks, peer-to-peer cash, and then 2024 it's like ETFs, please, simping for Trump, allowing self-custody. Please allow me to hold my Bitcoin in self-custody. What happened? Can you give us a...
Yeah, of course, we were complaining about that, but we're not surprised about that. I think it's
what happened to Bitcoiners?
It's growing, and when you grow, you have to compromise on purity a little bit, because I think so. Let me put it this way: the slide was pessimistic, was a joke against this kind of evolution, but my real stance is optimistic. The absolute number of people with sound Austrian economics ideas and understandings, and strong ideological cypherpunk ideas, and crypto anarchist and anarcho-capitalist ideas, I think is growing in absolute number. way more thanks to Bitcoin. Many people entered in Bitcoin for investment reason, technology reason, then they discover some of them discover a consistent framework of ethical ideas and practical strategies to improve to implement those ideas. So I think I'm very optimistic about the growth of the initial non-compliant spirit. The problem is that the absolute growth, the absolute numbers are growing, but the percentual, but the adoption is growing more.
Yeah.
The hype is growing more.
Yes.
The Bitcoin
mainstream hype,
yeah, the mainstream hype is growing more. So we have a growth of the now. I have more anarcho-capitalist, committed, non-compliant rebel friends that I had back in 2013. But over the number of people interested to Bitcoin, that percentage is shrinking in a relative way. So I think that's to be expected.
Natural.
It's natural. It's growing, and if you, I mean, a true rocker will tell you that when rock and roll went mainstream, of course now it's all commercial shit. About the true rockers are still there, but it's inevitable. You cannot have adoption and purity at the same time. It's important that we have it's important that the core, the nucleus, the best companies, the best developers, the decision makers, the project builders, those guys are stay focused in the core values, and then the parasitary adoption, the all this kind of adoption on the fringe. Yeah, you know, these guys that will use the thing without participating, they can be ideologically compromised as long as they don't get to decide, they don't get to corrupt the core. So I still feel the slide was in order to create some reaction, but I'm fairly optimistic about the fact that even if we have more and more, there may be, so I discussed a lot about Trump, there may be some more disorientment because there is always the political hope that you can reform the government from inside. So now Trump will fix everything. I understand that's also natural because it seems like an easy way to win, an easy win.
Yeah, so, but I never buy into this.
Me neither. Yeah. And the good thing is that if I'm right, there's not much time to wait for me to be shown right. So, I mean, we will see it very soon. And best case scenario, in 4 years, we are back to start. Mm-hmm. And if I'm wrong, well, then okay, I will admit I was wrong and Trump was the Messiah and he saved everybody. But I think he's a very funny guy, but not a savior. Yeah. And so I'm not really worried about this. I think that as long as we have strong ideological commitment in the core of the ecosystem, the fringe can become a little bit, retarded and still fine.
And degenerate, and and Bitcoin will be okay, and we will be okay.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, that doesn't mean that we stop shouting and we stop insulting. That's a role.
Making fun of.
Yeah, everybody's playing their role. My role is try to make them feel bad. I know that I cannot stop them, but we play our roles.
Amazing, Giacomo. Last words, message of hope, what you want to give people so that they stay optimistic for what's to come, because it's definitely not going to be boring in the next 12 months, 24 months.
Yeah, we can promise that. We are not going to be bored.
No.
If you buy Bitcoin, if you curate your OPSEC and privacy, so learn technological privacy, learn to keep your conversation information private, maybe learn how to use a gun, learn how to move in the world, get a second residency, be able to travel, get your vaccine passport ready. There are ways. Get all you need and to resist and get the popcorns.
and just be relaxed. Work on yourself to be relaxed enough to sit there with the popcorn and just watch what's happening in the world.
Cold storage, gun, and you're set to go.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for your spirit and you bring such lightheartedness to this cambaggery and this, fucked up world that we live in today. So I really appreciate your spirit. And where should people follow you?
Well, now finally I have a unifying project, planb.network. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter, X, Giacomo Zucco. But most things I will do will be in the context of the planb network. So
okay, are you a Noster as well?
We are. I still didn't learn how to spell out the public keys in interviews, but on Nostr you can find Giacomo
if
Zucco
you're
and
in
Permanent
Primal, you get a nice fancy
name,
email kind of
address. Yeah, I think we have one, but I'm not sure. But
It's
anyway,
okay, we'll put it in the show notes. We'll
yeah,
take
thank you,
everything
thank you.
and
We
put
have
it there.
my own. There is me, there is Mir, and there is and there is
B.
also Plan B Network.
Okay, wonderful. Great. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I
My
loved
pleasure.
it. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. Please take a minute to give this episode a like, a comment, and subscribe or follow. And please share it with your friends so they can also get value and choose to take some positive action in their lives. Till next time.